The Plank, presented by Ram, starts now.
Hey guys, this feeling that we have, there's more to come.
Yes,
Look what we did last week. We went back to work. That's what we got to do this week.
Go to work.
Streak. That's what it's about next. Streak. We know how to go on the road and win.
And back to work they did with the Bucs winning yesterday in New Orleans. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of The Plank. The show is right now streaming exclusively live on our free ABC Action News app and on abcactionnews.com. Hello everyone, I'm John Sable.
And I'm Tom Corrin. A much needed win for the boys and the franchise. Let's put it that way. You knew how much that win meant when you saw Lovey and GM Jason Light after the game jumping around like they won the lottery. I mean, seriously, plenty of good talk, plenty of good things to talk about. Greg Auman from the Tampa Bay Times Buccaneer beat writer will be joining us, along with Ed Daniels, the sports director at WGNO in New Orleans. We'll get both their perspectives on yesterday's victory by the Buccaneers. And by the way, here's another picture. Here's Jason Light.
Look at this.
With his clothes on, jumping in the pool with his kids in celebration of the Buccaneers' victory.
Now,
it's called the Buccaneers Plunge.
Yeah, he said this, he tweeted this saying, is this going to be a new tradition? And my question is that a full suit he's wearing? I think it is.
I know he didn't, yeah, I think what he had, he just took his coat off.
Ah, okay.
But it is. He's all dressed and ready to go. It's a beautiful thing.
Full suit nonetheless. Awesome.
I mean, you looked at that guy after the game. How happy
he looked like he
was
won the lottery in the Super Bowl.
I mean, seriously, you know how much weight was lifted off those two guys just with one victory? Now the clock starts again.
Yep, now you're all even at 1-1.
Right.
So this is how you guys, the Buccaneer fans, can get in touch with us at John Sable and at T-Corn WFTS. Those are our Twitter handles. You can also use the hashtag #ThePlank. We'll be reading some of your tweets as the show goes on here for a half hour. And if you want to give us a call, we'll be taking your phone calls live on air, 813-878-2888. We're going to be flashing those contact number and Twitter handles throughout the show, and you see here on the bottom of your screen as well. So a lot to get to today, so let's just get right into it. Let's talk about last night's big win.
Yeah, one of those type games that, the way I look at it, John, I thought they did a very good job early on controlling the line of scrimmage, offensively and defensively. They came back to take the lead on New Orleans. The defense really led the charge there. I thought that young kicker out of Notre Dame did a pretty good job himself.
Kyle Brenza did excellent.
Yeah, we'll talk more about him a little bit later. And then at the end, the only thing that I might have a little negative to say about it is I thought they played not to lose instead of playing to win in the last 6 minutes. They do have a rookie quarterback. They didn't use him very much. Concerned about it. Ran the football, fumbled twice. There at the end, it was a game that was close that shouldn't have been close.
Well, if you think about this, look at this way. New Orleans missed a field goal, and they missed an extra point. Those are 4 points late in the game in the second half. That could have been the difference if Brenza did not knock in some of those field goals down the stretch. What I really liked about it was, you mentioned the one thing you didn't like, the conservative play calling on the Buccaneers side. I agree in the second half. It got to that point. But what I liked is that the defense, maybe it did give up a little bit in this early part of the second half, but in that last few series against the Saints, they really stepped up, especially with Jacquizz Smith coming up big too. We'll talk about more and hear from Jacquizz Smith a little bit later.
Yeah, Jacquizz had I thought, well, we talked about it in our Bucs special leading into the regular season, folks. We thought if there were two guys, Jacquizz Smith from the defensive end position would be the next Simeon Rice, the 10-plus sack guy.
Right.
And on the inside, we thought maybe it might be, George Johnson perhaps, or maybe Clinton McDonald, one of those two guys. But Jack Smith, as they like to call him,
yeah.
He's the guy. He's the favorite. And right now, this guy's got, 4 sacks?
4 sacks. That's leading the NFL in just 2 games. Yeah. So that's still something to be happy about. Like I said, we'll hear from him coming up in a little bit.
All right. Do we have somebody on the line? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, let's go right to our Plank Report, sponsored by Ram. And for that, we're going to go with our own...
Greg, how are you?
Doing well, guys. How are you?
Pretty fine. Were you surprised at all by the Buccaneers' performance yesterday?
I think you have to be surprised a little bit. I think everybody knew they'd bounce back. I kind of expected it to be a closer game, step in the right direction. But no, to win and to kind of make up for that first week by getting a big win on the road, that's a big step, and I think gives them a lot of confidence and certainly gives their fans a lot of relief moving forward.
Greg, when you were watching that second half, did part of you think, uh-oh, here comes the implosion?
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, well, it's one of those where we write a live gamer that has to go at the buzzer. A game story that has to be ready to go as soon as the game ends. So you find yourself, it's 23-7 at the start of the fourth quarter, and it's like, the Bucs pulled away to an easy 23-7, and then it's like, wait a second, they score, and now it's 22-13, and the Bucs and their defense held on for a 23-13. No, wait a second, they scored again. So now they're Saints get the ball down 4 with all the momentum of that stadium behind them. It looked like they would be in big trouble. And to their credit, Chris Conte stepped up with a huge forced fumble there, and the offense kind of did just enough to keep that a win. So big finish. That's the kind of game they lost last year. So it's big that they can pull it out, even if it wasn't pretty at the end.
Greg, would you concur the fact that not only was this a big win for this team this year, but it was a big win for the franchise period? It superseded mostly than just a one-week win.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, this is a team that's going to very quickly check off a lot of things that last year's team couldn't do. So to win a game in the division, that's something they haven't done, since Schiano. That to win against the Saints is something, they had lost 7 in a row. That's the second longest win streak any team had against them. So to knock that off, to get a division win in your first division game of the year and do it on the road, it's kind of like just as that first game, when you lose to a 2-14 team at home, you can sit there and say, gosh, where are the wins on this schedule? And now, if you've beaten a relatively solid team on the road, I think you can go into any game with a certain amount of confidence because you've won a game like this before. So it helps them that way.
Greg, before we get into talking about the Texans game this coming weekend, when you look back at yesterday, kind of threw up the red flags for you that you think this team really needs to work on going forward, not just through this practice week, but throughout the rest of the season that you may not have noticed in the first week in the loss to Tennessee?
Well, I mean, in terms of offensive philosophy, I think they got they don't have a lot of experience as a team playing with a lead, but in terms of going super conservative, they didn't do much. And again, if you fumble on back-to-back plays, you're going to start being really careful to begin with. But they allowed the Saints to get back in that game by doing very little offensively at all in the fourth quarter. I think Doug Martin had 7 carries for 8 yards and a fumble. So to some extent, they have to find that compromise where they're able to move the ball and eat up the clock and get just first downs at least without feeling like they're putting themselves at risk for turnovers. So they'll figure that out as they move forward, though.
Yeah, Greg. One thing that I concur with you on that. What my concern is the fact that I don't think they had the trust in Jameis Winston to go to some play action and to go down the field instead of trying to run the football and trying to run it down New Orleans' throat. And they were stopping it very easily. And then, as we know, we had 2 fumbles, one by Winston, the other one by Martin. And fortunately, New Orleans, in between all that, missed a field goal. And, it kind of hurt their momentum there. Do you think that maybe because of the fact that Winston is too new to the game, this might have been a different story, a different strategy, had he had a few more games under his belt?
No, definitely. I do think they were careful. Again, you mentioned New Orleans missed a field goal. New Orleans went for 2 and missed. New Orleans missed an extra point. That's 6 points right there that can make this a lot tighter game without the Bucs doing too much differently. So, no, I do think they're being careful with him. They're trying to build his confidence. So for him to have a game with no interceptions, I think it's smart of them to not make him do too much early on. I think he threw 21 passes yesterday. That's the fewest he's thrown in any game since September of his freshman year at Florida State when they had a romp against Bethune-Cookman. So the smart thing they're doing is not making him feel like he has to do too much. He had 2 drives, end of the first half, start of the second half, where he really took control, took him down the field for 2 touchdowns. And beyond that, he didn't have to do very much. So, like I said, I think they're going to put more on his plate as they see him getting more comfortable and understanding things better. But it's probably smart of them to lay low and take it easy early on.
Yeah, hey, Greg, welcome back to Tampa. And it's always nice to talk about a Buccaneer victory, which we didn't have much of that a year ago.
I remember both of them last year were really neat to reminisce about. Yeah.
I know. Felt we were cheering for it now. Yeah. It's been so long.
All right, Greg, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, take care.
All right, that was Greg Auman from the Tampa Bay Times Buccaneer beat writer, and we have another special guest today.
We do, yeah. Ed Daniels, sports director at WGNO in New Orleans. And Ed, as people here in the Bay Area are really excited for the Buccaneers win, Not so much there in New Orleans. It looks like we just lost Ed Daniels. We're going to get back to him in just a moment. But, one thing I thought was interesting that Greg Auman just touched on when talking about this game is that, it's been that long that they have not won a game. 2 games last year. First NFC South opponent win since 2013 when Greg Schiano was the head coach. To put that in perspective, TK, that's pretty
Listen, you're
impressive.
Bringing back bad memories, man. I'm trying to get in a real positive mental frame of mind with the Buccaneers after yesterday's game. And the fact they beat New Orleans, they beat a divisional team, to me is fantastic. But, folks, New Orleans is not the New Orleans
and you know what?
that we know of 2-3 years ago.
I've always said this. The Saints are probably one of the most overrated teams in the NFL because they are not the same Saints team that went to the Super Bowl a few years ago but have been as dominant. Drew Brees is older. He doesn't have Jimmy Graham this year. What is Rob Ryan still doing as a defensive coordinator there? I mean, that team is not a defensive stout team like they used to be.
Well, they had a couple of guys out. Burr was out,
they had a few
too.
injuries,
really
but it's still not the same.
Well, and the backup that they had, who we will introduce to you later on in the show, had no clue what was going on. I mean, he had no idea where the football was, and that helped the Buccaneers tremendously, I thought, yesterday.
Yeah.
But I guess some stats we have here.
As we try to get Ed Daniels back on the phone, here's your final stats from yesterday's 26-19 win. TK, when you compare Drew Brees' numbers to Jameis Winston's, pretty comparable in the fact that they both threw for more than 200 yards through the air. Winston had 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 1 through the air. But Drew Brees threw an INT, but Winston also had 1 fumble, which that's something that you and I have talked about this going into the season, that Winston's going to make a lot of Buccaneers fans happy and very frustrated with some of his decision makings, whether it's going to be through the interceptions or just rushing with the ball and not protecting, which is something he's going to have to work on.
We know it's football 101 to protect the football, but I'm also going to blame the coaches and their strategy here, because I think that they absolutely put that team in a position to fail at that point. They went too conservative, and New Orleans knew it, and they were going for the football. Now, okay, Martin needs to protect. He didn't protect. Winston had the football up above his, even with his helmet, when he lost that. Big mistake there. They're trying to make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. I think that they needed, when they were playing their best football, they were getting after him.
Yeah.
And Martin ran for a purpose. Did anybody see Doug Martin run for a purpose in the last 6 minutes of that game? No. He got to the line of scrimmage and stopped.
Yeah.
He stopped.
When you have your pedal on the gas, your foot on the pedal on the gas, keep going, just keep doing it. Why pull back a little bit? That's something Dirk Cutter's going to have to answer to, I think, coming up here this week.
Yeah, and I think what I like about Dirk, he's absolutely honest, and I think he's going to say, we thought that was the best route to go considering the circumstances of our rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
All right, I think we have Ed Daniels back. Hey, Ed, how are you?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
We're doing fine. Listen, what's the thoughts right now of what happened to the Saints yesterday against the Buccaneers?
Well, I mean, I think here in town it's probably considered to be one of the worst losses of the Peyton era. I don't think there's any doubt. I think there's a huge concern here that, last year's 7-9 record wasn't just an asterisk, that it might be, something a lot deeper than that. Look, the Saints, 4 or 5 years ago, they were invincible at home, all right? And now, since they go to Carolina this week, their next home game is going to be in early October. That means it will be a calendar year, 12 months since they've won a home game, which is pretty amazing.
Do you credit I don't want to call it a demise of the Saints, but what do you attribute the lack of success at home? Is it just because maybe the coaching, the players? Like, who's at fault when you think about this?
I just think that when you look at this roster, to be honest with you, you look at the roster from what it was 4 years ago to what it is now. There's been a precipitous drop in talent, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. Look, who do the Saints have on their roster right now that scares you offensively?
Yeah.
Maybe Colston. Yeah, maybe about it.
But look, Colston is near the end. All right, Colston is near the end. He's not the player he was. And again, I go back to 3-4 years ago. Their third best receiver was Lance Moore, who was a very good player. Their third best running back was Pierre Thomas, who was a very effective player. So, they've got a lot of issues, and I think they miss Jimmy Graham, and I think Jimmy Graham misses them. So, you don't have Kenny Stills. Both of those guys were guys who could at least command a little attention downfield, and you don't have that. And to me, those are the kind of guys that help you win football games.
Ed, was Breeze's effectiveness curtailed by the hit that he took early in that football game?
Yes, it was. He said after the game that it definitely hurt him, especially on making some long throws. And if you remember the one to Cooks, who was open,
right,
and he threw it out there, and that ball kind of just fluttered, and it was intercepted. So I think it definitely affected him. One of the things that I thought was interesting yesterday was after the game, his body language. I've never seen him like that.
Yeah. And
it was a very somber deal, and it should be.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ed, we'll see you down the road again when the Saints come here to town, and you take care of yourself there, and I hope better fate for the Saints here as you move along in the season.
Well, you know what? They've got Carolina this week at Carolina, so it doesn't get any easier.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you, Ed. Take care.
You guys have a good one.
You too. All right, Ed Daniels joining us from WGNO, sports director. Good guy. We appreciate the time he gave us.
Yeah, and we'll talk with him as we get to inch closer to that game down the road when they come here to Tampa Bay. Now, let's talk about this game real quick. Afterwards, we heard Lovie Smith off the top of the show, just ecstatic, happy with this team. Here's Lovie and Jameis Winston again about yesterday's big win.
After a loss like that, you can't wait to play as much as anything. The guys went to work last week. Felt like we had a good game plan. We knew how hard it is. Any team coached by Sean Payton, you know what you're going to get. But we fought throughout.
For our whole organization, we get last year we got 2 wins the whole season, so we were halfway there already. So that's definitely important for us, to jumpstart and get a good road division win.
Oh, big win in his first career road win there for Jameis Winston, and first career win in general, too. So now we wanted to get a feel for how Buccaneers fans are feeling about this first win and see what else is on their minds.
So we sent Chief Photographer Eric Moore out to the press box in Tampa, and Eric joining us live from there. What I would imagine to be a pretty happy bunch of Buccaneer fans, huh, Eric?
I can't hear Tom.
Eric, can you hear me now?
That's right. We're here at the press box down on South Del Mabry here, where a lot of Bucs fans sat in yesterday and watched the Bucs pull off that big upset against the Saints. Yeah, a lot of us are glad to see that Jameis seemed like he's come around. And joining me now is Mike Keaton. He watched the game yesterday from the press box here. And tell me, what are your thoughts about Jameis and the team yesterday?
I feel as if Jameis is stepping up to the plate and he's overcoming all the pressure that was put upon him from all of the fans and critics, because you're the first overall draft pick. That's what you expect of. And he got his first game under the belt. Second game, he came out slinging the ball a little bit more, had a few more completions than last time. Did an overall way better job than last.
Yeah, when you look at that, when you look at that defense, they seem like they came alive in the second part of there. But it seemed like they came alive there in the second half. There, what do you think about the defense?
I feel as if the defense is what kept them in the game. Bucs defense are great. All the Bucs got to do is just score on offense. It's all on Jameson.
Now the Bucs are 1-1, and you hear some people talking about, we better go out and get those playoff tickets. What do you think? You think it's too early to start popping our hoods yet?
There goes more pressure on Jameis right there. That's all it is.
Yeah, and then in that fourth quarter, it looked like they seemed like they were about to blow it again. You see how the Bucs, they get to that fourth quarter, you're sitting on the edge of the couch about to hit the TV with the remote. What do you think? You think that they held on there at the end?
I felt as if they got confident, as if they were going to win, and that's when you lose games, is when you get cocky and confident. So they just need to keep on going, pulling through, haul off, go to the playoffs, make the Bucs happy.
Yep, that's it. It's going to do it from here at the press box on South Del Mabry. From some of the fans that watched the Bucs pull off that big upset against the Saints yesterday. Back to you, Tom.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Eric. And get your playoff tickets.
We're jumping the gun maybe a little bit, but we'll see.
But, we have a part of this show, my favorite part of this show.
Yeah.
I still hate that garb.
Well,
nobody changed that.
It looks better on you than it does on me.
Well, I don't know, but that question mark is going to be answered. Who do you think should walk the plank?
We had Lovie Smith walk it last week.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, this week, even in a Buccaneers win, you don't really want to pick a Buccaneer. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. We want to hear from you, the fans. Tweet us at The Plank or give us a call, 813-878-2888. That's going to be coming up later on in the show.
All right, The Plank, presented by Ram. Coming up with more right after this.